Imagine making six figures per year publishing low content books. Folks, that is not out of the realm of possibilities. In fact, today's guest, Rachel Harrison Sund, has been doing that for years now, and she's teaching other people to do it as well. And she's actually been doing her own YouTube channel for quite some time that has actually been cross-pollinating with mine. So I thought it was long overdue that we sit on down for a nice little interview and chat with her about her start in the business of self-publishing, and then her transition over into low content book publishing, and of course coming into the world of YouTube video content creation. So without any further ado, let's get on into the interview with Rachel Harrison Sund. Rachel, I just said this, but I feel like it's worth repeating. What took us so long to get connected? Because when we saw each other years ago in Vancouver, you didn't really have a YouTube channel. Now you've blown up big.
Yeah, well, I as I said in the beginning when we were just chatting before firing up the camera here, kids will do that to you. I've had two kids. I don't even remember if I had a kid yet when we actually met in Vancouver. Did I? I don't think I did.
No, not yet.
Yeah, okay. So since then, there's been a 5-year-old and there's an almost 3-year-old now. And yeah, that kind of eats up a lot of time. So, I do a few of these things here and there, but it hasn't really been a huge priority. Things are kind of like opening up, I think, a little bit now. So hopefully I'll have some more time to do some fun conversations like this.
Yeah. So let's kind of back up just a little bit. What brought you into the business of self-publishing? What was the thing that you were like, ooh, I'm going to try this?
Well, at the time I was working as an art director at an advertising agency, and I'd probably only been there a couple of years before I realized, I don't think this is for me. I really don't want to be spending 80 hours a week creating things that nobody actually wants to watch or listen to. So I was kind of just looking for an exit strategy. And I came across this idea of self-publishing as a business model online. And I've always loved books. I was looking for something to do online that I could do for myself at home and hopefully just build up a little side hustle that could eventually take me out of my career as an art director. So that's what drew me in. And, there were a couple of other things I'd kind of experimented with before I got to the self-publishing thing, but that just seemed so right up my alley. It just seemed like a natural fit and super fun. So that's what kind of pulled me into that space.
What were the type of books that you were publishing initially?
So the very first book I published, which is going to sound probably silly and counterintuitive, was a recipe book that was paleo diet for vegetarians, which I know sounds like kind of an oxymoron, but it worked. I was doing some research and it looked like people were actually looking for that type of book, but there weren't really any options for obvious reasons. So that was my first book that I did. I think it made $100 the first month, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're starting to make money online, that first $2 royalty sale, that was oh my God, this works. If I can make $2, I can make 200, 2,000. Your mind just my mind instantly was just whoa, this could get so huge.
Yeah.
I started off with the nonfiction stuff, recipe books, some other stuff. I think there was a potty training book in there and a dog training. So basically I was coming up with these ideas, creating these outlines, and then I was sending it out to a writer to write. Because that's really the only way you can scale. You need to put out multiples of these books at a time. And of course, unless you're someone who has more than 24 hours in a day, you can't do all of those books yourself. So that was kind of the business model. You get multiple writers writing these books at once, and then you're buying the rights, you're collecting the royalties after you publish them. So started off with the nonfiction, then I moved into romance, which, let's get real, is more like erotica, and had some more success there. And then probably about 2 years in, maybe it was 3 years in, I started hearing about this low content publishing, which just sounded right up my alley. I love to design, that's my background, but B, because I could do all of that myself, I now didn't have to pay someone else to create the interiors of these books. So that meant I get to keep all the royalties. So that's when things kind of really exploded for me. I think about 14 months after I started the low content stuff. And when I say low content, I'm talking about planners, journals, notebooks, guest books, just like the name implies, low content.
Yeah.
And I think it was about 14 months after I started publishing those books that I reached the six-figure mark in profits, and things just kind of ballooned from there.
Interesting. How has the business treated you since? Have you seen your paychecks drop? Or have they increased? Have they stabilized?
So I think when I was kind of at my peak, so there was like $100,000 year, and then the next it was like $280,000. So it's kind of just it's mostly grown over this past while. You know, I've been focused a lot more on my YouTube channel and helping other people create those similar results for themselves. So I haven't spent a ton of time publishing my own books recently, but it's basically just ballooned.
Nice. So what would you say is the key to that success? Was it, did you have a high volume of publications, or did you focus on any marketing efforts? What does that look like for you?
So for me, I think the first thing is definitely quality. If you go onto Amazon and look at some of these books, like there's a lot of junk out there. So if you can just make a good quality book, like a really high quality design, read the reviews of other books, see what some of those complaints are, and try to use that to your own advantage. That I think is the number one thing. Like you've got to be putting out there high value, high quality books. And the second thing is, while quality over quantity is important, there is a volume aspect to this. Okay. You know, you're not going to start making $10,000 a month just by putting out one book. Most people I know that are making like really big numbers, they are publishing hundreds of books, sometimes thousands of books to get to those numbers, which I know seems like a lot, but remember, these aren't novels or nonfiction books even. These are books that can be created pretty quickly. And a lot of times you can actually reuse the interior. So for me, I really had a lot of success with daily planners. So with daily planners, the interiors are generally the same. So I could create one interior and then I could create 20 very different covers, and now I've got 20 different books. So I mean, I was able to create probably about 20 books a week when I was kind of like really at the peak of my publishing. I'd be putting out like 20 books a week. And I think I probably got to about 1,000 books total. And I was probably making about $10,000 a month. Probably I had about 400 books at that point. So wow. Definitely a volume aspect. Yeah.
And of that volume, what would you say, what was the ones that was, well, the 80-20 rule, if you will, does that apply to this situation?
100%. So like half the books I've ever produced didn't make a single sale. Okay. Like literally, you know, if we're talking 800 books, 1,000 books, it's like 400 to 500 of them sold nothing at all. And then out of the ones that did sell, there's probably about 20% that were generating that 80% of all of my royalties. Okay. And really, like at any given point, there'd be like maybe 3 top books that were generating kind of the bulk of that. So. So if you see something that's not selling, do you do anything with that? Do you delist it? Do you try to change the title or the cover or anything else like that? What does that look like for you? Because I've been putting them out at volume, like if something doesn't sell, I kind of just let it go to the wayside. And I don't want to be wasting time on, like if something hasn't sold, it made at least one sale in like the first 2 to 3 weeks. To me, that's just not going to sell. So I don't waste any time going back and trying to fix it. It could, because this is a book that probably has the same interior as some of the other ones. So I just think, okay, it was the design. Like this design just didn't resonate for whatever reason. So usually I'll just go back to the drawing board and I'm just putting out new books all the time. If there's a book that has been selling well and then it, you know, starts to dwindle in sales, that I think, you know, that's already a proven book. You can go back and adjust things. I mean, you can't adjust things like titles or anything, but you can make tweaks to the cover. Like if it's a full cover, that's like a different book. But if you want to make a little tweak here and there, or the description, keywords are a big one. Like I have swapped out keywords on books that were just sort of languishing, and then that's really revived their sales. I did that to a bunch of older nonfiction books when I learned a completely new keyword strategy. And those are books that weren't making very many sales, and then adjusting their keywords really helped to pick up their sales. So that I think would probably be like the first line of defense when you see a book starting to fall in terms of sales, is I would swap out the keywords.
Very interesting. What do you think is the common denominators for the successful books versus the unsuccessful ones?
I mean, again, I think design is big. And
Okay.
you don't have to be a professional graphic designer, especially with so many amazing stock resource sites out there. But you do need to have a good eye for design. People do judge a book by its cover, obviously, especially with things like planners and things like those are the kind of things that, like, when I'm personally am buying a planner, like, I love to look at the cover and what's the design like. So that's kind of like the first thing people are looking at. So good design, a good quality interior filled with whatever the value is that the person's looking for. Like if with the daily planner, just think about what are the different features that people want to use and put that kind of stuff in there. So I think design, that's the big one. And the other big one, of course, is research. You want to be creating a book that someone is actively searching for. So a lot of times someone will just have this great idea for a book, but they haven't really validated the idea. They put it out there. Nobody wants it. So you want to make sure people are kind of actively searching for that. And you can just go on to Amazon and take a look at what's selling. Like I like to go through the bestsellers lists, just see what's selling. And then usually I'll head over to a tool like Publisher Rocket, and that's going to give me a lot more information just in terms of like all the related keywords, how many people are actively searching for that keyword a month, because of course you want to know people are actively searching for whatever that book idea is that you have. So I think those are really the two main things, are design and just doing your research, coming up with a really good list of keywords. You can do that manually, but I think anyone that's been doing it manually for a while, like, you want to get a tool like Publisher Rocket because it's really going to be helpful. I think those are probably the two main things. And then, there's some supporting things like making a good description. There's a lot of descriptions, they're full of spelling mistakes, or it's like two sentences that doesn't describe what's inside the book. So you want to make sure that looks professional, and it seems like, like obviously, but a lot of people don't bother. Yeah. And then pricing too, you want to make sure that it's priced accordingly. You don't want to undercut everyone, but you don't want it to be like $20 more than everyone else is selling theirs for either. So those are kind of the more, the smaller details, but the two main ones I think are definitely design and research.
What's your approach to marketing and promoting your books, be it low content or even nonfiction or fiction?
So for me, I think the main route I like to go is with an email list.
Okay.
I'm kind of an anomaly in that I've never actually used ads, which I know sounds ridiculous because so many people, ads really can amplify your results.
Yeah.
But for me, once you've got that email list and you've got real customers on that email list, they've already proven that they like what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And it does take some time to grow, but each time you're putting out new books, you can be promoting that to people that have already bought your books and might be interested in it again. And that's really worked for me. I routinely get emails from people, when is this next planner coming out? Or, I bought this and I'd love to see this in like a matching journal or something like that.
Yeah.
Like if people like your stuff, they're going to be interested in buying more. So I think an email list is probably the most valuable way to promote, although it does take the most time to build. And I will say that it was a lot easier to build that list when I was putting out fiction. I had one main pen name in particular that built up quite a bit of a following. So it was quite easy to build up an email list. It's a bit slower going with the low content publishing, but I do think that it's still worth it because it's free, right? Right. Ads can get expensive, and that's like a whole other beast in and of itself. From what I understand, it's something that you got to kind of be looking at, and you're in there every day and making tweaks and adjustments. I definitely think ads have their place. I've just never gone down that road.
Yeah, for attracting subscribers to your email list, how do you go about that? What's the easiest path? And feel free to plug any, of your preferred email service providers.
Well, Okay, so the way to do it is you want to offer a relevant freebie. So whatever your book is, think of something that might go alongside that book. So if it's a recipe book, maybe you could have like top 10 smoothie recipes. Or if it's a coloring book, maybe it's like a free, like 5-pack of coloring pages or something like that.
Smart.
So you want to create that as a PDF download. So you'll need a landing page, obviously, and you'll need your email service provider set up and all of that connected. And then you just want to place a link to that inside your book. So if somebody buys a book, they flip 2 pages in. Oh, look, I've got this, whatever this freebie is. Check it out here. People like free stuff, obviously. So if you've got a relevant freebie that people will actually find valuable, they're going to download it, and now they're on your email list. Now, in terms of my favorite email service provider, I was with MailChimp for quite a while, but I kind of wouldn't recommend them anymore. They're not as... I don't think they're as valuable as they once were. Like before you could have, it was like free up to 2,000 people or whatever it was. I don't think that exists anymore. I think it's like a lot smaller and a lot less features.
Yeah.
So now in my own program, I recommend MailerLite.
Now,
I will.
I knew I liked you.
Are you a MailerLite fan?
I'm a MailerLite fanboy for sure.
Good to know. Yeah. I will say for myself, I actually use Kajabi, but that's strictly to make things easier on myself because my course is through Kajabi. My landing pages are all there. So
makes sense.
When you look at how many softwares I'm subscribed to in a month, it's like, let's just keep this simple.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kajabi. It's not the best for email, but it's just the easiest for me. So that's why I use them, but I recommend MailerLite to other people.
So when you get somebody into your email list, what do you do? Obviously, you're going to give them probably a welcome email with their downloadable assets. What comes after that? How often are you communicating? What are you communicating? Tell me what that looks like.
Yeah, with this, you don't really kind of want to bombard people. Like if you're publishing 20 books a week, you're not sending out 20 emails a week trying to get them to buy your new book. Yeah. I think, if you can just offer some value, like send an email. It could be like a roundup of maybe like tips that are related to some of the books that you've promoted or something. Okay. You want to kind of offer more value than you're, requesting in return. So you could send, it doesn't even have to be one email a month. It could be or one a week. It could be bi-weekly. It could be monthly, whatever. But you want to make sure you're at least sending as many value emails out as you are promoting your books. Mm-hmm. And then I would just maybe like once a month send out a promotional email, pick like maybe your top 5 books or something. Like don't have them open an email and there's like a list of 50 books. And just like have a blurb about each one, like why they might find it helpful, a picture, and then a link that just goes to that page. And I think that's good. So that's, the book stuff, that's obviously a little bit different than my other email campaigns, which are just going to, people that I find the same way with, through my freebie and like my YouTube channel and stuff. That's going to be like a totally different ball game. With those emails, I'm sending people to my free content on YouTube and so...
You have so many plates spinning and you have so many irons in the fire. How do you know what to prioritize?
Good question. For me, it's just once I started my YouTube channel and my course, Low Content Profits Academy, I really learned how much I enjoy teaching, which never in a million years would I have thought I would have enjoyed. So that is just what's feeling good to me now. So that makes it easy for me to prioritize. I haven't published any of my own books in a little while now because I'm just focused on, there's only so many hours in the day. We can't do it all. Like, wouldn't that be great if we could? But, back to the 2 kids thing. I've got 2 kids. I've got 5 to 6 hours tops a day to be doing any sort of work. Yeah. And with the YouTube channel, my course, and I'm creating another course right now, there's just not room for all of it. So my own publishing, that has fallen to the bottom of the list, and I'm cool with that. Like, I've always looked at that as a big stepping stone for me. Like, I'm really passionate about helping people find out what their skills are and then monetize those skills. And that's kind of where I'm moving towards. That's what my new course is going to be about. So the publishing, I mean, I'm so grateful for it, because it's allowed me to get to this point where I haven't had to worry about money coming in. That was taken care of. And that's now allowed me to focus onto something that I'm like really, really, truly passionate about, you know? So the publishing, that's definitely been fun, but because it's always been hinged on Amazon's business, I never wanted that to be the be all end all, like my primary source of income. Yeah, so that's kind of how I think about my priorities. I've kind of always had to look at the publishing as, this can't be any more than like a side thing. And it really has been this stepping stone for me to just pad out my finances and get me in this situation where, okay, now I've got time to focus on this other stuff that I like really, really love.
Yeah. Boy, we have burned through 20 minutes like crazy. I want to wrap up today's podcast with what I ask all of my guests, which is, what advice do you have for aspiring authors and self-publishers?
I think just with anything that you want to do, you have to just do it. And you have to be prepared to really suck at the beginning and to just work through it. Because your first book is going to suck. And that can be really tough to hear. It doesn't matter if this is like a novel, a nonfiction, a low content book. Like, Beethoven didn't just sit down at the piano and belt out like one of his famous concertos, right? Like, that doesn't happen for anyone in any field. We all have to go through this period of, this sucks. So, and I think that's when, you know, a lot of people, they just get frustrated and they find it so difficult to kind of get through that stage. They think like, this isn't working. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And it's amazing to me how many people just throw in the towel at that point. And it's like, wow, think back to when you were 1 year old learning to walk, how many times you fell over. Like, what 1 year old is like, oh, I guess I can't walk, you know, like nobody does that. But we think as adults that if we're not good at something immediately, it's a lost cause, and it's not. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, is just like, if you can just accept those failures and that feeling like you suck as just, it's just part of the process. You're going to get past it, but you can't quit to get past it. You have to just muddle through it like we all do. All of us, we're all just muddling through everything, right? And the ones that get success in any space are the ones that just accept it as part of the process, and we just keep muddling through until we get somewhere. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice.